The Ukraine is not a sovereign state. It does not have internationally recognized sovereign borders. It's still part of Russia, has been since the 10th century. We think we're a sovereign nation. We're not. The Ukrainians think they're a sovereign nation. They are not. The Ukraine has been the center of the globalists for decades and decades and decades. CIA, they've been working in the Ukraine for 70 years, building up a resistance to everybody and everything, because they needed to bring the Soviet Union down, but they also want the resources that are in the Ukraine. That's what this is all about.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small. And the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all.
By Vlad Putin going in, he's cutting the head off the snake.
With so much rapid information passing by us like bullets on a raging battlefield, it gets difficult to understand where we are, where we're going, and what's true. To better understand today's political landscape of confusion, it's imperative to learn how we got here. We all know there's a plan for the elite of this world to puppeteer representatives of power into creating a new world order.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there. And we've got to lead it. And we've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
Yet, like any really good movie, the dark forces have to contend against the good guys. Darkness to light. It appears that this is the theme of our time. Pick up a Bhagavad Gita, a Bible, or any ancient spiritual text, and you'll find that evil has existed since the beginning of time. But how far back do we have to go in order to make sense of everything happening today? With the possible World War III looming, we have to understand the core of today's threat didn't start by Russia simply being power-hungry. It started a few thousand years ago, when Russia was Kievan Rus, and its leader, Vladimir the Great, and his father before him, defeated the Kabbalistic oligarch known as the Khazars. The Khazar kingdom was by far the largest of any nation in Europe, with approximately 1 million square miles. Today, this can be found on a map as contemporary Ukraine. Coincidence? Nothing is. Look around and you'll quickly see every political figure that is in support of Ukraine and that demonizes Russia are actually showing their true colors. They are making it known that America has been infiltrated by traitors, pedophiles, murderers, and thieves. And lucky for us, no coincidence that Russia's Vladimir the Great has got our back again. Now that you've glimpsed the bigger picture, let's connect all the little dots as we explore the rise and fall of the Khazars. Let's go back in time 2,000 plus years, when an incredibly evil society emerged in Khazaria. Only the Jewish Encyclopedia claims the Khazars had invaded Eastern Europe from their homeland in Asia via the land route between the north end of the Caspian Sea and the south end of the Ural Mountains. We know the Khazars were not Semites and came from an Asiatic Mongolian region. Eventually, the Khazars were driven out of Asia by the nations they were continually at war with. Because of this, the Khazars invaded Eastern Europe. In far Eastern Europe, the very warlike Khazars did not find it difficult to subdue and conquer 25 peaceful agricultural nations, occupying approximately 1 million square miles. And in a short period, the Khazars established the largest and most powerful kingdom in Europe, and probably the wealthiest also. (100 AD to 500 AD). Tribes that eventually comprised of the Khazar Empire were not an ethnic union, but a combination of many unrelated tribes, including Turkic, Asian, Iranian, and perhaps Eastern European herders and nomads, and other wandering steppe people. There were Slavic people, including Kazakhs, and Turkic peoples, like Oghuric and Bulgars, and Asian tribes, like the Avars and nomads, who stemmed from Mongolia and South Siberia. These mixed groups with Turkic leaders led to the formation of the Khazars. By the year 550 AD, the kingdom of the Khazars was well established south of Russia, or modern-day Ukraine. Khazars lived on the shores of the Caspian Sea, with their primitive capital on the northern tip where the Volga rivers form a delta. The Khazars fought under the banners of Attila the Hun, who was the leader of the Hunnic Empire from 434 to 453. Attila was known to the Romans for his brutality and a penchant for sacking and pillaging Roman cities. It is here where Khazarian warriors would participate in what they'd eventually become known for, raping and pillaging a land after taking it over. Between 500 and 800 AD, the Khazarians developed into a nation ruled by an evil king, who had an oligarch serving as his court who practiced ancient Babylonian black arts. During this time, Khazarians became known to surround countries as thieves, murderers, road bandits, and for assuming the identities of those travelers they murdered as a normal occupational practice. This was known as their way of life. Any country could order an army from the Khazars as a service, but only under one condition. The Khazarian warriors would be able to rape and pillage after the war was fought. This is why, in an effort to halt the wrath of the Khazarian warriors, the Persian king Kobad constructed a line of forts through the mountain pass to the Caucasus to guard against the invasion of the Khazars and other warlike tribes. That is also why the Wall of Derbent had begun construction to guard against the savage Khazars. With the Khazar streak of power, the Turkic Khaganate was formed, and the western portion included parts of the future Khazarian Empire. The Khazars dominated the Caucasian Crimean Goths and later occupied the Gothic capital Doros, and eventually the Khazarian Empire was formed. It is important to note that the Rothschilds claim to be Jewish, but are in fact Khazars from Mongolian Eastern Europe. Like Eisenhower, the Rothschilds have Asiatic Mongolian genes and not genes of Judaic people. The Rothschilds are like 95% of the Jews today and have Khazar genes and are now known as Ashkenazi Jews. But Georgia and Ukraine are 800 to 1,000 miles north of Palestine. Fact. Every prime minister of Israel has been a Khazar Ashkenazi Jew, with no connection to Semite people at all. An ultimatum was delivered by Russia and other surrounding nations impacted by the Khazar murders and robberies that they must reject paganism and choose between Judaism, Christianity, or Islam as their official state religion. The Khazarian king chose Judaism, but despite his promise, the oligarchs kept practicing ancient pagan Babylonian black magic, or secret Satanism. The king melded these practices with Judaism and created a secret satanic hybrid religion, derived from Babylonian Talmudism written by hired rabbis. The deep dark secret of the occult ceremonies was that they were all based on ancient Baal worship, also known as worship of the owl. It involves child sacrifice with bleed-outs, blood drinking, and eating of children's hearts. So these evil practices continued and all these are part of the Khazarian mafia today. In 900 AD to 1200 AD, Russian conquests were made into the Khazar kingdom and eventually drove most of them out. The Russian prince, Svyatoslav, made war upon the Khazars. The Russians created the gradual fall of the Khazars, so in a matter of a decade, the Russians removed most Khazar presence. Unfortunately, the Khazarian leaders had a well-developed spy network and were able to escape across Europe, taking their vast fortune in gold and silver. They infiltrated Europe and Slavic nations, and perhaps back into Asia, infecting many nations and city-states, including as far as Venice, Spain, and most of Central Europe. In secret, they continued their satanic child blood and sacrifice rituals, all for their trusted Baal to give them the whole world and all its riches. Ever since, the Khazars have plotted eternal revenge against the Russians and the surrounding nations that invaded Khazaria and drove them out of power.